Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. Today guys, we're going to be diving down into the world of Vechain, taking a look at the price action of VET. Some interesting things are happening on the charts that could lead VET into a massive set of gains in 2022. Guys, as we get into this video, if you do find it useful and informative, hit the like button, really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then do make sure you subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and you won't miss another update. Right, with all that said, done, and out of the way, let's jump on down into the desktop and take a look at what is going on here with Vechain. Okay guys, so before we get into the kind of the here and the now, I think it's important that we actually take stock of the current position, right? We've seen a bit of a green candle being printed this week so far, and some pretty positive change after, you know, such an interesting kind of outlook over the last little while. So we're going to start with this weekly chart. We'll just get this nice and lined up for us. So we can obviously see that March 2020 was pretty much the Kickstarter of the bull run here for Vechain, with a nice push to the upside. Wave 1 coming in around August time of 2020. For anyone who was in crypto back then, such as myself, Chris, and a few others, this was a, you know, fantastic time. You know, Vechain VET was actually setting all-time highs right down here at this low point of 2.3 cent. Hard to believe, I know, right? It's almost laughable when you think about the kind of progress that it's made so far. And you know, it's been pretty good. And obviously that kind of led us into this retracement area, pullback, took us into this nice low. Again, just getting lower than 1 cent. And again, this is actually the time then me and Chris were heavily talking about Vechain on YouTube, kind of, you know, talking about the things that they actually do and the use case and the utility of the 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘 blockchain. And for those who do not know, you have to do a lot of research. There's a lot of FUD out there, lots of noise, and just things that aren't really factual. But with Vechain, it's very actually hard to find a blockchain project that is so heavily adopted that, I know, unlike Vechain here, right? So very important that we understand that Vechain's got huge global adoption. Yes, it has partners and integrations in China, but as do many other projects as well. But ultimately, the use case of Vechain is really what you want to be focusing in on, and why there are so many absolute behemoth companies actually utilizing the 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘 blockchain for their solutions within this this sector. So definitely worth doing some research on it, and we were highlighting it super early on when we started our YouTube channel, which we only started back in October of 2020, despite some of those comments saying we've been watching you for 5 years and you say the same thing over and over again. It's just not possible to have watched us for 5 years. We haven't been on here for that long. So yeah, we started around October 2020. You can check that on the channel. And from there, you know, we were talking about Vechain pretty early on, and it's been fantastic to see so many people ride this up with us into wave 3. Wave 3 took us up to those fantastic heights in April of 2021. Now, admittedly, there are going to be people who were buying at the top here and had to unfortunately endure the pullback, a very significant pullback at that, right? And you know, you see basically 81% of the value kind of drop off of Vechain. Now, it's very unfortunate, but it doesn't mean that that's the top here for VET. There's actually a lot more growth to actually come. So we did actually top Vechain out here at 27.9, I think. Yeah, 27.9 cents. So pretty much 28 cent. And then we started to see this correction. We actually pulled down to a really nice low area of a 5.1 cent zone, right? This is basically effectively a good buy zone that we highlighted during this fourth wave correction. And, you know, basically you can see that we're coming down pretty close to this area right now, and we're starting to see that reversal, right? This is a key area for Vechain, and basically, you know, good reversals and good kind of traction to the upside, right? So when we take a look at this, we can see some pretty interesting things on this weekly chart. Okay, so just above and beyond those candles and those movements, and of course these 5 impulsive moves to the upside, the fourth wave correction, and trying to get into this fifth wave in a nice strong way, you can argue that we're still kind of just bumbling around in this fourth wave correction at the moment, not really going down lower than we had been previously. We're just working our way up, and before we get that traction into this fifth wave, which, you know, when we actually take a look at the lows of October 2020 into December 2020, you can really see that basically at this point here was the start of the new year, and we had this fantastic run. We did actually get a little bit of traction beforehand here, but for the most part, you know, this is an interesting kind of way to kind of analyze the beginning of the year and the expectations that we're getting. Now, 18,000% from March through to, I think it was the high in April. Basically 399 days, 18,000% gains. That is very significant. It's outperformed things like Bitcoin. It's outperformed Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano. It's outperformed Polkadot, Algorand, 𝗕𝗙𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗘𝗥𝗦, XLM, XRP. It's outperformed a whole host of cryptocurrencies, right? And it's hard to ignore those facts, right? It's from, if you're getting in super early, and I am measuring the same time period, guys. I'm basically taking a look at not the exact dates to dates, but the start of the bull run up to that peak that we had here. And when I do that comparison, right, I'm not just plucking numbers. You can feel free to kind of check that if you want, but basically, you know, it's really hard to find a cryptocurrency that has performed as well as Vechain has. Okay, you might not think of the dollar values that get associated with it as being meaningful, but they are incredibly meaningful from a percentage point of view, which is not what you get from Bitcoin, Ethereum, arguably Cardano, Algorand, Polkadot, you know, and so forth, right? So really important that you focus in on what gets you the most percentage yield. Okay, and you know, Harmony 1, Vechain are both in that 18,000% range, Anchor's in the 34,000% range, Matic 42,000% range. So those are the kind of, you know, the levels that really make your portfolios, you know, massive very, very rapidly. Whereas Bitcoin kind of just bumbles around at about 1,600%, Ethereum about 5,000%, Cardano's better at about 14,000, you know, and around that kind of range. But ultimately, you're not in the same kind of league, right? So it's important that we understand that, you know, Bitcoin and Ethereum are great, but they aren't going to make your portfolio pop, right? And that's where Vechain really comes in. But it does come down to your appetite of risk, of course. Okay, so people might class, you know, Vechain slightly more riskier than Bitcoin or Ethereum. I'm not exactly in that camp, because, you know, when you actually do the research, you can actually understand that Vechain has a lot more going on around it, and it's heavily adopted by absolutely massive organizations around the world. You know, it's good to kind of get that kind of level of understanding with it. That being said, obviously this kind of sideways trading that we've been going on here, we can obviously analyze this and see exactly what's going on. We can see here that we have this A, this B, this C, and we're pulling down a little bit. But when we get into the smaller time frames, we actually need to acknowledge something slightly different here, and that is that that might not actually be the correct ABC count. Okay, we obviously have to acknowledge that here's an ABC. There's also an ABC to the downside. Okay, and we can see that right in here. We had the high, we had the A, we had the B, and then we had that C pull back. Now technically that C is impulsive, but we didn't actually see the impulsive move. Instead, what we led to was another interesting move here. Here is our A, here is our B, and here is our C going higher than this. This actually means that our ABC corrections actually already come in. Here we have our A wave, a B wave that actually did go higher than our start of our A wave. It can happen occasionally, and then we pull back down into that C. Again, I would argue that this is not a neat example. I don't like it. But there's also a way of counting these weekly waves, okay? And when we start to think about it. So we'll be monitoring this situation quite closely for Vechain, and there's a few things that I think are really important that we do understand about this weekly position on our stochastic RSI along with our candles, right? So for example, we can take a look at where we are on our low area of the bull run starting back in March of 2020, right? Where we were at the high of the top of wave 1, the lows of wave 2, the highs of wave 3, the lows of wave 4, and of course, we'll just highlight our current position. Now, we marry this up to our stochastic oversold. Okay, we come down to here, oversold, overbought, oversold, overbought, and of course, oversold at the beginning of the bull run, right? So right now, when we're down here, what's the expectation? Well, every single time we've been in this level of oversold position, we can see that we've had a push to the upside. We came down, then we pushed up to the upside. We came down, and then we pushed up to the upside. Now here we actually see there's a correction in the middle, right in here, right here, and then we pushed back up to get this level. Okay, so there's the recent kind of trading is interesting, because it definitely is trying, like the charts are trying to indicate that there is moves to be had, but then there's certain things that are happening on a macro scale that are affecting the charts, but you can still tie everything together. Okay, so it's important that we understand, you know, that the technicals are still supporting, even though we've had some macro events such as Evergrande, you know, real estate, etc. And I'm sure there's many other reasons why we've seen, you know, Bitcoin be as volatile as it has, which obviously has had an impact on Vechain as well. But my main point here is that the Vechain chart on our weekly is actually looking very, very good, and we are in a very good position to see good growth as we go into 2022. So when we come down into our daily view, this is where we get into the really interesting stuff, okay? Because this is where we get into that Elliott wave triangle. Now, the Elliott wave triangle is something that we see from the high areas of April, pulling down with our A wave, pushing up into our B wave when we actually had that high in November. Again, you can see the ABC corrections here. Then we pull down into this C wave. Again, we are overbought right now. We can see that coming down into this range. We are in a pretty reasonable area. Now, what's really interesting about this is actually we're on a daily chart, right? And we're really zoomed out. All of these little tiny candles and making up this triangle pattern are playing out towards, you know, February, March of 2022. And here we can see this impulsive breakout potentially taking us up to that dollar range for Vechain, right? So for VET. Now, this is a really important thing when we actually start to think about what happens here on these triangles. We've actually got a good example with Harmony 1 on our hourly chart. Okay, we have the triangle just here and a triangle just here. So these are two things that are going on, right? This one's actually played out already. This is where we actually got the all-time high for Harmony 1. The Elliott wave triangle played out, took us to 38 cent. We saw the correction come down and we see another triangle form. And this triangle is still in play right now. But here you can see the break after this triangle, a massive kind of push out of this triangle to the upside, right? And that's where we are, right? We're trying to track this, this particular kind of action, but inside Vechain on this triangle, right? So right now we're super early. We haven't actually seen the D wave in, so we're looking to ride this up in the early parts of 2022, get that in. But then we do expect this crash, right? And this is going to be a pretty harsh one. I think many people are going to get really frustrated with it, but if we understand why and what's going on, it's important that we understand that we're probably going to lose about 40% in that E wave crash down after having pretty decent gains to the upside, right? From our current position, you know, we'll gain about 80%, and then we'll lose 40% of that and coming back down into this E wave, right? And what that's going to allow us to do is get us nice and heavily oversold again, and then we'll push up massively with this impulsive breakout. So that's kind of how I see it playing out. There's no guarantees though, because of course, you know, we need to see this C wave come completely in, finish that off, and then push up into our D wave. Okay, so once that D wave is completed and we start to see the correction come in for E, then we're pretty confident that we're going to be seeing this this move and this breakout out of our triangle to the upside. So one to watch out for. I've been talking about this for a little while now, but pretty big play on our daily chart. And obviously you can see when you zoom in, just, you know, the little stuff that's going on in the smaller time frames, it's just noise to a much bigger play, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to get into our smaller time frame, and I know that we were kind of slightly wrong actually, and interestingly so. So I'm going to get into this. So we obviously we plot out quite a few different things, right? We can see some different kind of ABC up, ABC downs, ABC ups, and actually when we got to the high of this this C wave here, I was actually expecting a deeper ABC correction down, right? You kind of get that idea. I kind of measured it out, the stereotypical kind of area that you pull back down to, the 618, the bounce from there, the pull back down, the ratio of a 1-to-1 for the A to the C, and all that kind of stuff, right? Pretty standard, but we actually saw the C wave kind of come in. I mean, you couldn't have got that any more spot on. It's pretty much exactly a 1-for-1 ratio with your A to your C, exactly as you would expect it to. And then my ABC pullback here was actually incredibly shallow. It's so small, it was almost insignificant. You would barely even notice it. It was very quick, and it's right inside there. And then what happened here is you wiped out this stochastic RSI rapidly, quickly, and to the point where you got the reversal, right? There was an appetite for moving up. Then this is followed up by an ABC to the upside, and then you're starting to see inside here there's lots of different kind of candles. There's in fact an ABC inside this motion. We're actually going to pull that back down. We can see that we capped out just at about here. Okay, we didn't get the A to the C 1-to-1 ratio right. You know, we fell a little bit short. That can happen. It's, you know, these things are not an exact science, but they give you a bit of a ballpark figure. We actually kind of found heavy resistance on that 786. You can see we didn't really close above it. Instead, that kind of indicated our reversal. So not closing above that 786 made us fall short. And then here we can see that we had the ABC down. Okay, so again, you have that A, that B, the A's down here, the B's comes up, and the C comes down. And again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly remove that fib, and I'm going to measure out that A wave distance. And again, I'll do it in the correct manner so that we pull that down and we'll put it on top of B. Here you can see that wicked just above that 1-to-1 ratio with the A and the C waves. And again, now we look for the reversal. We look for the push to the upside with our completion of a C wave, right? And that's exactly what you get then here. We are now tracking nicely, but now what's interesting about this is there's a couple of red candles in this push to the upside. We are heading up into the overbought area. So I would anticipate that actually there's a couple of different options that we have here. The first one is that we could acknowledge that maybe this here is in fact our A wave and our B wave, and we're in that C wave right now, and in which case we were expecting a reversal at some point soon, and we can actually go ahead and measure out our expectation on that. It puts us just about here. If I push that up there, and you'll get the idea that that's about 8.9. Probably by the time this video's come out, we'll know whether that has actually been, something that we've seen and come in and gone out again, or, maybe we get a reversal anytime soon. Okay, so we'll figure that out. Obviously, by the time you watch this, you'll probably know which direction that went. But, 8.9 is kind of the A to C 1-to-1 ratio, right? That's kind of where you would expect it to kind of go in that kind of zone. And if we close above that 786, there's a high probability that we're probably going to push above the 8.9 cent area. We are, partway through this hour anyway, so watch that space. If we go past 9.1, we're impulsive, basically meaning that this is not an ABC, but basically an A, or a 1 wave, a 2 wave, a 3 wave, pushing past and closing above that 382, pulling back down for a 4th wave, and then pushing up into a 5th wave, right? A nice impulsive move. This is also a play, but we are expecting a pullback that the stochastic RSI is needing. And of course, we'd have to be tracking that within this 3rd wave. So do watch that. There's a little bit more room to grow here. We could see rapid growth, kind of taking out that area and pulling back. It's one option. We don't know if it's going to happen just yet, though, so do watch out for that play if it is on the horizon. The other thing that's important that we could acknowledge is this actually could be a bigger A wave. Okay, this could be a big A wave with a B wave down and then a C wave up. Okay, and now that particular play could be interesting. I'll go ahead and move my fib back down to the beginning here and actually take this up into that A wave high. Then go ahead and actually we did measure that that retracement zone as well, so we know where that B wave is likely to go. If we just grab hold of that for a sec, here we'd see that it would be approximately in and around this zone just here. Okay, and then we'll see we would look to basically track this then up to this high area of about 9.3. Okay, so again, interesting kind of motions to be had here. We are either in an A wave waiting for a B wave down and then a C wave up, or arguably we can call it an ABC, wait for an ABC down and then wait for another ABC up. So many different ways you can count it, but all of it is actually in the same direction, and we're looking pretty good and pretty positive from that kind of perspective. But as I said, this is just noise, right? If we zoom on out, we can really take stock of just how small the plays are right now in the greater scheme of things, right? We're trying to track up into this D wave high, and right now this is just absolute noise going on with a much bigger play. So if you're hodling your VET tokens, things are looking pretty interesting long term. And if you're looking at actively trading, there's some pretty interesting stuff going on the smaller time frames as well. So yeah, I think Vechain's got a pretty good future ahead of it in 2022. Some interesting plays are going on right now, some definite recovery on the horizon here. But again, this is just the smaller picture. It's important that we have a look at that weekly viewpoint, or point of view, I should say. We're looking for tracking some pretty decent kind of growth overall. And if this is the start of another big move to the upside on Vechain, then we are going to be expecting some pretty cool things. So as I said, right now we know that there's an Elliott wave triangle on the smaller time frames, and we know that this potentially is a C wave low. Then actually this might be our A wave, right? And therefore, if this is our A going up into our D wave, then we have a small E wave pullback, and then maybe we go, absolutely insane and set that kind of motion to the upside here, going impulsive. Then actually this might actually be forming out with a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on our longer time frames, completing our 5th wave, as I spoke about at the beginning of the video. Guys, there's so many fantastic things on the horizon here for Vechain. It's really hard to see this in a bearish situation at the moment, considering everything that's going on. So one to keep an eye on. I think Vechain's going to do incredibly well in 2022. Guys, I'm going to leave the video there. If you have found this useful, informative, maybe entertaining at times, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then do go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.